December 31st, 2025. Circle that date. Because on January 1st, 2026, thousands of Florida condo buildings will legally transform from assets into liabilities. This isn't speculation, it's already written into law. Senate Bill 4D and House Bill 1021 have created a financial reckoning that most owners don't even know is coming. Right now, nearly 40% of Florida's condos are sitting in a strange purgatory. They're still listed for sale, people still live in them, but banks have quietly blacklisted them from receiving mortgages. No loan means no buyer. No buyer means no exit. And no exit means you're trapped inside a building that might need millions of dollars in repairs you didn't budget for, can't afford, and legally cannot avoid. The Surfside collapse killed 98 people. The law that followed is killing the finances of nearly 500,000 condo owners. And the clock just hit 11:59. Now before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. If you've been watching video after video about Florida real estate and all you're getting is clickbait headlines with no actual substance, no real answers, just fear without solutions, hit that like button right now. Because what I'm about to walk you through isn't designed to scare you. It's designed to make you see clearly. And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming next, because I promise you this story is far from over, hit subscribe. I'm going to keep tracking this as it unfolds, and you deserve to know the truth before it costs you everything. Alright, let's talk about why 40% of Florida condos are now worthless. If you own a Florida condo, are thinking of buying one, or know someone who does, what I'm about to tell you could save you six figures or prevent a financial catastrophe you didn't see coming. Here's the brutal truth. The real estate industry doesn't want to say out loud. Florida's condo market isn't experiencing a correction. It's experiencing a reckoning. Most people think a home is worthless if it's physically damaged or in a bad location. But what's happening right now is stranger and more insidious. These condos are becoming worthless because of paperwork, laws, and a calendar. You can have a pristine unit with million-dollar views and it still won't qualify for a mortgage. You can price it 30% below market and it still won't sell. Why? Because the financial structure underneath the building has collapsed, even if the building itself hasn't. The core misunderstanding is this. Most people think buying a condo is like buying a house. You own it, you control it, you sell it when you want. But a condo is actually a share in a collective financial organism. And if that organism is sick, your individual unit becomes unsellable, unlendable, and in the coldest economic sense, worthless. What you're going to walk away with today is the exact legal mechanism that's blacklisting, buildings from mortgage approval, how to read the 3 documents that reveal whether a condo is a trap before you buy, why 40% of Florida's condos are now cash-only properties, and what that does to your equity, and the psychology of panic selling, special assessments, and the exit wave that's flooding the market right now. This isn't about fear-mongering, it's about understanding that ownership is only valuable if someone else can afford to buy what you own. And in 2025 Florida, that equation has fundamentally broken. You're not watching this to panic, you're watching this to see clearly. Let's start with the thing most people don't understand. A law can make a building worthless without touching a single brick. In 2021, after Surfside, Florida passed 2 laws, Senate Bill 4D and House Bill 1021. Here's what they did in plain English. Milestone inspections. Any building 3 stories or taller, and 30 years old or 25 years old if it's near the coast, must hire a licensed engineer to inspect its structural integrity. Not optional, not negotiable. Then there's SIRS, which stands for Structural Integrity Reserve Study. By January 1st, 2026, every HOA must have a fully funded plan for repairs to roofs, load-bearing walls, foundations, electrical plumbing, the bones of the building. Here's the sentence that changed everything. Associations can no longer waive reserve funding. For 30 years, HOAs played a game. They'd say, we need $2 million for the roof, but let's vote to waive it and keep our monthly fees low. Everyone voted yes because no one wanted to pay more today. The future was always someone else's problem. Now, the state said, no more kicking the can. If the engineer says you need $5 million in repairs, the owners have to pay now. Not in installments over 20 years. Not when it's convenient. The money has to be there, in the reserve account, or the building gets flagged. And here's the paradox. The law was designed to make buildings safer, but it's making them unsellable. Because the moment a building gets inspected and the assessment comes back, buyers vanish, lenders vanish, and the owners are left holding a piece of paper that says they owe more than the condo is worth. Think about that for a second. You bought a condo 5 years ago for $350,000. You thought you were building equity, you thought you were securing your retirement, and then one day you get a letter in the mail that says, your share of the building's repairs is $75,000, due in 12 months. And by the way, your monthly HOA fees are also going up by $900 because insurance premiums just tripled. You try to sell. You list it for $375,000, thinking you'll at least break even after realtor fees. And nothing happens. No showings, no offers. You drop the price to $340,000. Still nothing. Finally, someone makes an offer. $200,000. Cash. Take it or leave it. You're in shock. You're insulted. But then you realize that cash buyer is the only buyer you're going to get, because everyone else needs a mortgage, and the bank won't lend on your building anymore. So if the law is supposed to protect people, why is it destroying their finances? The answer lies in how mortgages actually work, and how an entire class of buildings just got blacklisted. Here's something most people don't realize. When you buy a condo, you're not just buying your unit. You're buying into the financial health of the entire building. And if that building is sick, the bank won't lend to you. Period. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two entities that back 90% of mortgages in America, have a set of rules. If a building hasn't completed its SCRS report, or if the inspection reveals critical deficiencies, the building gets added to an internal blacklist. No mortgage, no exceptions. What does critical deficiencies mean? Cracks in load-bearing walls, water damage in structural concrete, outdated fire suppression systems. Basically, anything an engineer flags as a safety risk. Now here's where it gets financially devastating. 90% of buyers need a mortgage. If the building is blacklisted, those 90% disappear. You're left with the 10% who can pay cash, and cash buyers know you're desperate, so they offer 50 cents on the dollar. Your $500,000 condo? A cash investor offers $250,000. Take it or leave it. But wait, there's more. Florida just passed another rule, the 7-day rescission window. Buyers now have 7 days after contract signing to review the HOA's financials and cancel with no penalty. Imagine this. You finally find a buyer, you sign the contract, you start packing, and on day 6, their lawyer reads the SCRS report and says, walk away. The deal dies. You're back to square one. The trap is complete. You can't sell to most buyers, you can't get full price from cash buyers, and even when you do get a contract, it falls apart in the rescission window. I want you to understand the emotional weight of what I just described. You're not dealing with a hurricane that destroyed your home. You're not dealing with a market crash where everyone lost value. You're dealing with something much more isolating. Your building's paperwork is wrong. Your HOA made bad decisions before you even moved in. And now you personally are holding the bag. There's no one to be angry at. There's no disaster relief. There's just you, staring at a special assessment notice, wondering how you're supposed to come up with $60,000 by next summer. But maybe you're thinking, okay, it's hard to sell, but at least I can stay and ride it out, right? That's where the special assessment waterfall comes in, and why staying might be even more expensive than selling. Let's do the math on a real building, because this is where theory becomes nightmare. Imagine a 100-unit building built in 1985. Gorgeous views, great location, but it's 40 years old and the state just mandated an inspection. The engineer's report comes back. Roof replacement, $1 million. Concrete restoration, that's the spalling, the rebar corrosion, $2 million. Elevator modernization, $500,000. Plumbing overhaul, $1 million. Total, $4.5 million. Divide that by 100 units, $45,000 per owner, due within 12 months. Now add this. Your HOA fees were $400 a month, but the building's insurance just renewed, and the premium went up 800%. Yes, 800, because Florida's insurance market is imploding. Your HOA fee is now $1,400 a month. So in year one, special assessment, $45,000. HOA increase, $12,000 annually. You just got hit with $57,000 in new costs on top of your mortgage. And here's the cruelest part. Your unit didn't go up in value. In fact, it went down because now every listing in your building has to disclose the assessment. Buyers see that and run. You can't sell, you can't afford to stay, you're trapped. And this isn't a hypothetical. This is happening right now to real people in buildings all over Florida. I've seen stories of retirees who saved their entire lives to buy a condo on the beach, only to get hit with an $80,000 assessment they can't pay. I've seen young families who bought their first home, thinking they were being responsible, only to discover the HOA had been lying about the reserve fund for a decade. These aren't bad people. They're not stupid. They just didn't know the game was rigged. So is there any way out? Actually, yes, but it's not a way out for you. It's a way out for developers, and it's called condo termination. Here's the strange financial alchemy happening in Florida right now. Sometimes a dying building is worth more dead than alive. It's called condo termination, and here's how it works. A developer looks at your 100-unit building and says, "The structure is falling apart, but the land? The land is worth $30 million, so they make an offer. I'll buy every single unit. You walk away with cash. I knock the building down and build a luxury tower. Under Florida law, if 80% of owners agree, recently reduced from 100%, the sale goes through even if the other 20% don't want to sell. You can be forced out of your home. Now, for some owners, this is salvation. They're drowning in assessments they can't sell, and a developer offering $300,000 for their unit is a lifeboat. But for others, especially retirees who've lived there for 20 years, it's devastating. You're not moving because you want to. You're moving because the math decided for you. The paradox? The building's physical death becomes its financial resurrection. But only for the developer. For the owners, it's a forced exit at a price they didn't negotiate. There's something deeply unsettling about this to me. The idea that you can own something, truly own it, with a deed and a mortgage and years of payments, and then have it taken from you because your neighbors voted. It reveals something uncomfortable about what ownership actually means in a condo. You don't really own your unit, you own a vote. And if you're outvoted, you lose. So if you're watching this and thinking, how do I avoid this trap? Or how do I get out before it's too late? Here's what you actually need to know. If you're buying, demand 3 documents before you even make an offer. First, the SIRS report. This tells you what the building needs and how much it'll cost. If the HOA hasn't done one, walk away. Second, the Milestone Inspection report. This is the engineer's structural assessment. Look for the words critical deficiencies. If you see them, the building is blacklisted. Third, the reserve funding line in the budget. This shows whether the HOA is actually saving money or just pretending. If reserves are under 20% funded, you're walking into an assessment. If you're selling, price it for the reality, not the dream. If your building has a $50,000 assessment coming, your unit is worth $50,000 less than you think. Price it now or lose equity later when the panic selling starts. And I know that's hard to hear. I know you want to believe your condo is worth what you paid for it. But the market doesn't care about what you want. It cares about what someone else is willing to pay. And right now, with inventory up 56% year over year in places like Palm Beach, buyers have options. They're not desperate. You are. If you're staying, you need to know, am I in a building that can survive this? The ones that will make it are the ones with high reserves, proactive HOAs, and no deferred maintenance. If your building has been kicking the can for 10 years, start planning your exit, because the 2026 milestone isn't a suggestion. It's a legal wall. And when you hit it, there's no more time to prepare. Here's the thing about all of this that I can't stop thinking about. None of this is about the condos themselves. The buildings didn't change. The views didn't get worse. The sunsets are still the same. What changed is the collective agreement, the unspoken deal that said, we'll all pretend the future isn't coming, and we'll all keep our fees low, and it'll all work out. And for 30 years it did work out, until it didn't. Surfside was the wake-up call. 98 people died because a building was allowed to decay while everyone looked the other way. The state said, never again. And the law they passed was meant to save lives. But laws don't account for human psychology. They don't account for retirees on fixed incomes who can't come up with $45,000. They don't account for first-time buyers who thought they were getting a deal. They don't account for the fact that safety and affordability are sometimes in direct conflict. So now we're in this strange moment where 40% of Florida's condos exist in a kind of financial limbo. They're not condemned, they're not destroyed, but they're also not sellable, not lendable, and for many owners, not livable. What does this mean for you? If you own one of these condos, I'm sorry. I know that sounds insufficient, but I mean it. You didn't cause this. You bought into a system that was broken long before you got there. The best thing you can do now is get informed, get honest, and get ahead of the wave. Don't wait for the assessment notice. Don't wait for the market to crash further. Look at your building's financials today. Request the SIRS report. Talk to your HOA board. Find out what's coming. Because the worst thing you can do is pretend this isn't happening. If you're thinking of buying, you have an opportunity to avoid a trap that's already caught hundreds of thousands of people. Use it. Be ruthless with your due diligence. Walk away from anything that smells wrong. I don't care how good the deal looks. I don't care how beautiful the view is. If the financials are bad, you're not buying a home. You're buying a liability. And if you're just watching this because you're curious about markets, about laws, about how value is created and destroyed, here's the lesson. Ownership is only valuable if someone else can afford to want it. And when the rules change, when the math stops working, an entire asset class can evaporate overnight. The Florida condo crisis isn't over. It's just beginning. The 2026 milestone is the starting gun, not the finish line. And what happens next will reshape coastal real estate, retirement planning, and the way we think about shared ownership for decades. There's going to be more pain, more assessments, more forced sales, more buildings going cash only, but there's also going to be opportunity for those who know how to read the signs. The people who will come out ahead are the ones who see clearly right now, who understand the math, who don't let emotion cloud their judgment. If this video gave you clarity, or if it confirmed something you've been worried about, hit the like button. It genuinely helps other people find this. Drop a comment if you're in one of these buildings, or if you've got a story about trying to buy or sell right now. I read every single one, and your perspective matters. Because this isn't just about real estate. It's about how we build our lives around assumptions that can change overnight. It's about how collective decisions can trap individuals. It's about the gap between what we think we own and what we actually control. And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming next, because this story is far from over, subscribe. I'll keep tracking this as it unfolds. I'll keep finding the documents, reading the reports, talking to the people on the ground. Because you deserve to know the truth before it costs you everything. Thanks for watching. And if you're in the middle of this fight, you're not alone. The numbers are big. The problem is real. But knowledge is power. And now you know.